Welcome to the Warrior Raiser podcast. My name is Elias Johnson. On today's episode, my mom talks to her friend and longtime mentor Becky Oldfield. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Good morning, warriors. Time to start your day. Keep your head up, marching on. Don't let nothing stand in your way. Don't let nobody tear you down. You got to proudly wear your crown. 'Cause you're a warrior, warrior.
Well, good morning. I'm so excited to have my good friend and mentor, Becky Oldfield, with us today. Becky, thank you so much for being with me on the podcast. It is an honor and a privilege to have you with me on the show.
Well, thank you, Angela. I'm so glad to be able to be here today and excited about what we're going to talk about.
Yes. Well, you and I have had the privilege of knowing one another for about 16 years. I did the math. And Becky and her husband are the senior pastor, and she is, I think they often call you the first lady, but sometimes of Potter's House, the Church of God in Columbus, Ohio. And my husband, Derek, and I and our family were attenders there for 16 years. You watched us go through so many of life's major milestones. We got married. You saw, you were there with us through the births of all three of our kiddos, and you have been a mentor to me in so many ways in ministry and in life. And I just know that you are a deep well. And anytime I have the opportunity to have someone who knows more than me and has been ahead of me in life, I want to have a conversation. So here we are today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Will you give I know I give a little spoiler that you are a pastor's wife, but I know that that is not the sum of who you are. So will you give the listeners and the viewers just a little intro about who you are, and so they can get to know you a little bit better?
Sure. One thing I try not to do is label myself as Tim Oldfield's wife or first lady, even though that is a part of who I am.
Right.
I first of all, I'm a daughter of the King, and I'm a grandma, which I tell you right now that's the best thing that's ever happened. It's so hard when you think about the things that, that people call you or
categorize you.
Right. And so you try hard not to put that label on yourself, but be what the Lord wants you to be.
And I think that those of us that know you as a leadership position, sometimes it is difficult to see that is not the sum of you and who you are. And I think that this is a really neat opportunity for us to just take that label and we'll put it off to the side for today. And we're going to just talk to Becky, the mama, the grandmama. What do they call you? Memaw? What do they call you?
Memaw.
Memaw. And wife. So that's what we'll talk about today. So I know I give all the interviewees a list of questions. So let's just hit it right out from the beginning. What's one thing that you wished, well, tell us about your kids. How many you have, a little bit about that, and then talk to us about one thing that you wish you knew before you became a mom.
All right. We have 3 boys. David is 38. Michael is 30, and Jonathan is 26. They are all 3 married. David's wife, Erin, they lead worship at the Potter's House. Michael's wife, dearest, they are getting ready to step into leadership at the Potter's House. And then Jonathan and Sarah, Jonathan sings on the praise team. They're involved in the church and different things they do. 6 grandchildren. David and Erin have 2 boys. Michael and Damaris have 2 girls and a boy. And John and Sarah have a little boy. One of the things I wish that somebody would have told me when I first became a mom is how much energy and how much time that you will put into your children. it's like never ending. It's almost like your life is not your own anymore because you have to tend to this child's needs all the time. So I think one of the things I wish I was told was how much time and energy that would take.
And let's be honest, all that energy is wasted on the youth. Like, we need to bottle what they have right now in their younger years, and then just take little siphons of that to get us through our day to day right now. I don't know about you, but I hit 2:00 and I need like a coffee almost every day. You said something that was really interesting, that you have 3 boys and that they're all in ministry. So when you think about a living legacy right now where you are in this life, what joy or what thoughts does that bring to you when you just have those moments when you look on at your boys and your grandchildren?
Well, 3 John 1:4 says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. And so sometimes I sit on that front row and I watch my kids in ministry, and not even on platform, even off the platform. And the joy that it brings to me is just, sometimes it just brings tears to my eyes, just to know that all 3 of them and their wives and their kids are being raised in truth and walking in truth.
When they were little, I read this book by Mark Batterson called The Circle Maker. And in that book, he specifically talks about praying over your children. Were there certain things that you would pray over your children that you're now seeing come to fruition, and that are answered prayers specifically related to their walks with the Lord?
Absolutely. 1 Chronicles 4:10, the Jabez prayer. That you would bless my children and grandchildren and enlarge their territories, the area of influence, and let your hand be on them and keep them from harm so they may be free from pain. We pray that over our kids every day, and just seeing it come to fruition day after day after day, and our grandkids. So yeah, there were times when we were like, okay, what's happening now? But we knew, praying this prayer of our kids, we knew that God was going to use them mightily.
It's funny that you talk about that, because I just last night was praying with Elliot, and I remember my mom praying over me, and that I would marry a godly man after the Lord's heart, and I would cringe just with absolute disgust. But I prayed over Elliot last night, and we were praying over his future and his wife, and at one point he goes, well, let's just be honest, let's just ask for God to bring me somebody like you, Mommy. And I said, oh yeah. Yes, and amen. That's awesome. So yeah, it's where you are right now with your mothering. They're all in 30s. Jonathan's getting up there, but they all have families. And so it looks to the onlooker that it was just a really nice journey to get where they are. And we know that that's not true. So will you share a little bit about your motherhood struggles? Because you have an interesting perspective in that you're adding mothering, ministry, kind of being on a platform where people look to you and at you, whether you really want it or not. So I know that in and of itself brings some natural and organic struggles. So will you share a little bit about your struggles with mothering specifically over the years?
One of the things I really struggle with, and I try to tell new moms this, that because of the time and energy that you have to use on your children, not to neglect your marriage, because your marriage is your number one priority. Because without the marriage, then your children would suffer. So, that's one of the biggest things I struggled with, was finding the time, but I did. And it didn't take me long to find, the time that we needed as a husband and wife to work on our marriage and, raising our kids.
What did that look like practically for you? So for the mom or the new wife that's listening on the call right now, and they're like, that sounds great. How do I do that? Because I think a lot of it is our letting go too, and the struggle with relinquishing control over who's going to care for our kids if we care for our marriage and give it priority. So how did you guys do that practically?
We had wonderful parents that would help us with our kids. So just taking that time to say, hey, Mom and Dad, can you come stay with the kids so we can go away for a weekend, or just go off and have dinner, or, through the month 2 or 3 times, just have a time when it's just us, when you don't talk about the kids, which most of the time when you go out to dinner and you have little kids, that's all you want to talk about. But you put that aside and you talk about, hey, what's going on with you? What's going on with me? And I would say that was one of the main things that helped us.
Well, and I've borne witness to the fact that you guys have kept that practice alive, because there's been times where you've been at an event or you've had to be at something and you're like, hey, I have to go. Tim's coming in from town, that's Pastor Tim, and I haven't seen him in a day and I need to go home and make time to be with him. Or you work your calendar around prioritizing him. And it's very evident even to those that are witnesses of your life. Now, I know a little bit about you in terms of the early struggles that you had with mothering, and we were just prepping for the show here a little bit, and you were reminding me in the story of the fertility issues that you had. And I think that when you do come from a healthy or robust family, when you step into that space, there can be some natural issues that you have with that. Will you share a little bit about that, your story with that?
Tim and I were evangelizing. We got married and we evangelized a couple years. We were decided, hey, we want to have a baby. Do we really want to do this? Do we really want to take a baby, all over the country?
Yeah.
But so after 2 years of marriage, we decided we were going to start trying. So took a little while and I wasn't getting pregnant, and I went to the doctor. He said, well, let's try this. So he put me on some fertility medicine. Well, I got pregnant in the first month with David. So that's great. That's awesome. Well, we got our first baby and traveled all over the world. So we wanted our kids to be close in age. So about 2 to 3 years old, we decided we were going to have another child, and it just didn't happen. Didn't happen. All the fertility medicines, nothing was working. After 7 years, I finally got pregnant with Michael. And so Michael born, we were thinking, okay, we probably not going to get pregnant again because I had such a hard time before. So we just, surprise, about 4 years later, Jonathan came along. And, all my babies are miracle babies, but Jonathan being our surprise baby, he is and was the biggest, best blessing. And so, so it was hard. It was a hard road. But I believe that the Lord let me through that so I can help other mothers.
Absolutely. That same comfort that you were given, you can now transfer that to others and help them along their own journey. Okay, so if you could turn back the time and tell young Becky something about mothering or wifing, something along this journey, what would you shout back through the halls of time and let you know back then?
I would say, do not wish your time away. Enjoy your children at every age and every stage, because before you know it, they're going to be 38 years old. Yeah. And you're going to be a grandma and you're going to say, where is the time gone? So I would say to myself as a young mom to just not wish that time away.
Did you feel like when it was tough, you were just like, man, if I could just get through this hurdle? And that's what you're meaning about wishing the time away, just like they would meet that next milestone? Or
yeah. I wish they would walk. I wish they'd crawl. I wish they'd talk, and then they talk and you're saying, oh, I wish they wouldn't talk.
Yes. And now you put David's age on blast a couple times, but 38 years later, now you're looking back and thinking, okay, just to hit that pause button a few times, it would have been nice. Yeah.
Even when the kids were in school, they played basketball. And I remember sitting in those bleachers because one would play and then the other one would play. 3 and 4 or 5 hours sitting on the benches. And I would be like, oh man, I wish I didn't have to do this. But man, what I wouldn't do to do that right now, to sit on those benches and watch them play basketball again.
Wow, such a little thing in your memory, but to know that is something that you would go back and do if you had the opportunity to do again. Yeah, that's awesome. What advice would you give to moms that are raising this next generation? Because I know this past COVID year and the year that we're in right now, it is not an easy one. And for a new mom that's bringing new life into this world, it can be super daunting and fear filled. So what would you share with the moms that are right now raising this generation?
When we do baby dedications, I encourage our mothers and the families, the fathers, to also one of the most important things they can do is pray over their children. And we've discussed that a little bit already, but I would say you cannot go wrong when you pray over your children.
How about the fear that you think that's going on right now? How to speak to the mom specifically, because I have these conversations quite often with friends that are like, yeah, it's a tumultuous time. The virus alone brought a whole level of fear. So what godly counsel would you give to someone that's just steeped in that space right now?
Well, fear is not of God, and we know that perfect love casts out fear. So I guess I would say, try not to talk about that fear or talk about what's going on in front of your children at a young age, because they feed off of that, and they can feel that fear.
Okay. So in terms of where you are, because I know that all of us moms, we've struggled with that at some point in time, whether it's what to do with our future, what to do with the job situation. Who have been those people that have guided you through those steps along your way that have been influential to you, either living or somebody that you've just really hunkered down and just soaked up every word that they've had to share?
I'd have to say my mom. My mom, single mom, 3 girls. I watched her go through some horrible, horrible things, and just watching her stand steadfast in her faith and encourage us to do the same I'd have to say my mother.
Yeah. So you were witnessing her steadfastness. You were witnessing her staying true to the faith that she claimed in the middle of a lot of yuckiness.
Yes, definitely.
And I know we talked about at the beginning of the show that you don't like to label yourself as a pastor's wife or as a first lady or Pastor Tim's wife. So how do you, Becky Oldfield, make space to pursue the God-given dreams and the calling that he has specifically on you? And I know a lot of times in ministry, the wives come right there alongside their husband, and that becomes your ministry. But what about the specific things that God has birthed in you, and how are you pursuing them today?
When Tim and when we first got married, I felt like, he was called to ministry. So, I was looking for that calling, and we went to a revival somewhere, and the minister called me out and prophesied over me. And, that night I knew I was called of the Lord to be beside my husband in ministry. But making time for myself and what my dreams are. Right now, my goal is to help my kids raise their kids.
Yeah.
I want my grandchildren a lot, especially when our kids have ministry opportunities. I feel like that's my calling right now, is to help them and watching the kids while they do what they need to do, and speak into my grandchildren like I do.
Well, and I've had that conversation with the Warrior Raiser theme. Like, well, I don't have little ones right now, but it doesn't matter, because it takes everybody to help raise this next generation and raise them well and raise them up in the things of the Lord. Okay, now that is a highest priority calling, but there are certain giftings that the Lord has specifically given you. And talk about how you give back to the Lord with the things that you love and that he's gifted and anointed you to do. This is kind of a leading question. I don't know if you're picking up, but spoiler here. I heard the song to last Sunday reference, "When I Think About the Lord," and I immediately thought of you. And now share with the listeners or the viewers what one of your passions and your anointings are.
I do love to sing. When we evangelized, I would sing before Tim got up to preach every service. Sometimes, most of the time, it was with soundtrack and tape. So when I got to live music, I was like in heaven, But yeah, I've been in choir. I've been in our choir, and then there was a time where I led our worship for like a year and a half. And I continue to serve on our front vocals at the church. It's my passion. I love to sing. And so I use my voice in song whenever I can.
Absolutely. Yes. And it is just a delight to watch you worship, because I think sometimes what we watch now in music, or what's popular now in songs, it's more about us sometimes, not always, but it's really challenging to not make our worship about ourselves. And when I have witnessed you worship, I don't feel like you are singing to anyone else in an audience of one. And I think that is a beautiful model that you provide the body of Christ and others that are watching you. Because when you are up there on that platform, there's a Levitical calling to the worship. You're bringing in the atmosphere, you're ushering the atmosphere, not just with song, but you're speaking the word and you're singing the word. And I think there is a mighty calling to that. And I know that you walk in that well. Do you have any unfulfilled dreams or things that you've got that the Lord has just placed on your heart? Because now you and Pastor Tim are entering into a season where there is some shifting and transition, and not that you're on the back nine of the golf course or anything. Is that the right term? I don't know. The boys will catch me on that. But when you've walked this journey and now you see this pathway of ministry. So where you are right now in your life, I know that Billy Graham preached his last sermon at 95, and you're nowhere near that. So what are you doing now to pursue dreams and callings in ministry?
I feel like I'm living my dream now. I really do. I can't say that there's anything that I have not fulfilled, and except for to draw closer to the Lord, which is, every day we need to do that. But I can't say that there's anything out there that I dream, I wish I had,
Yeah. That's a good place to be. That's if you were to go meet Jesus tomorrow, then you would feel like, okay, Lord, I stewarded this well, and I did well with what you gave me. And obviously just to continue to draw close, that's an ambition that many of us have or should have. But yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so how would you like your children to remember you?
I want them to remember me as being faithful in my walk with the Lord, number one. And to know that I was always there for them. Yeah. Whatever they needed.
And last but not least, what does it look like to you, or what does it mean to you to raise warriors?
Teaching my grandchildren how to be a warrior, to put on the whole armor of God every day so they can fight the enemy. I would say that's a part of raising warriors.
Yeah. Anything that you didn't share that you want to share, that you think like, oh, this is something that the Lord has just kind of deposited in me, I need to get this out into the atmosphere? Any last thoughts?
I read something, actually it was yesterday, and when I read it, I thought, man, this would be great to share today. So let me I'll read it to you.
Yeah.
The walk will become theirs. Lead them well. They will follow. Train them to run and not get weary. Teach them where to drink from when they are thirsty. Show them how to get up when they trip and fall, how to heal when they are hurting, and to always have grit to never quit. You are the training ground for the next generation.
Amen.
That spoke volumes.
And this morning I heard a scripture reference in Proverbs 19:20, and it says, get all the advice and instruction you can so you will be wise the rest of your life. And I really do feel like that's the time that I spend with you. I'm trying to just soak up your wisdom. I can see the legacy. I see the good fruit in your family, and it is a blessing to me and to those around you. So thank you for living well and being a good, godly role model for all of the fellow warrior raisers that are around you. So thank you for that, Becky. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Angela, I love you. I miss you guys so much.
I miss you too. Well, to all of our fellow warrior raisers, thank you so much for tuning in and listening in on our conversation, and aim those arrows well.
Hi, this is Elliot Johnson. Thank you for listening to the Warrior Raiser podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to support my mom's show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.